right. There you guys are. I love this waiting room thing. I could see everyone. All right. Can you guys unmute yourself or?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah.
Sweet. All right. Welcome.
Look at all the people.
Nice.
Wow, look.
I know them.
So you guys can switch your view up to the gallery view, and we can all be situated in a grid formation.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
All
Got it.
So exciting.
right.
Now I have Monica really big. Now I have Elvira really big.
Probably because my dryer is running, which I should probably make stop.
All right. If you're just now joining us, welcome everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, depending on what, good morning maybe, depending on what time zone you're at. We're gonna get started in just maybe like 5 more minutes. And feel free to unmute yourself for the time being. We won't mute ourselves back until the reading actually starts.
Hi, everybody. This is Don. I'm just going to mute my mic and listen. I don't have a camera with this machine. We got to eat dinner.
Oh, hi, Don. Thanks for coming. I appreciate it.
But we want to listen.
What's for dinner?
That's the question.
Thanks, Don.
I am having champagne though.
It's a good job.
I wish I could share some with everybody.
There are limits to virtual co-presence. I feel so powerful now that I can view whoever's gonna enter the room before they do. This is checks and balances, people.
Awesome.
Jillian, you there?
Yeah, who's that?
It's Eddie Lou.
Hi.
We're eating too, so I haven't put a picture up.
That's
But Martin said to tell you he has his glass of champagne ready.
Oh, good. Okay.
Love you.
Love you too.
Hey, Jillian.
Hi, Mom and Dad.
Mom and Dad are here. Are the kids with you?
Clara is with me.
Okay. Oh, well, we won't talk anymore so we don't stir up anything.
So for those still learning the ropes of Zoom, we can also be chatting both to the whole room, and also if you want to send private messages for whatever reason, that's also encouraged, and to interact in any way you might want to during the reading.
For my family.
Right. All right, so maybe we'll start in the next 1 or 2 minutes. Again, thanks so much for coming out. I really appreciate it. My name's Chris. Over there is Jessica Fishoff. Together we run PANK, and we love seeing all of you guys in this virtual way.
I think as we're getting the hang of the virtual readings.
Mm.
We could have music going.
Yeah,
You, Chris, it's your job.
I gotta get on that. I have a feeling you guys would like my music too, perhaps. But yeah, that's a great idea, Shira. We'll definitely take that into consideration.
Yeah, that way we could let like 5 minutes go so that other people could come in.
Look at all these people. Hi, Serena.
Hi. Hi, Monica.
So exciting. Look at all the people.
Yeah, the grid is filling up.
It is
Hey,
So
everyone.
many people.
all these people here. It's amazing.
Great.
I love that people are eating dinner while this is happening because I feel like a president, like FDR, like a fireside chat or something. I feel very powerful.
Totally.
Spectacular.
Booze count as dinner?
Yeah.
Yes.
Good time.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. I think I'll get started. So for maybe the second or third time, I just want to thank everyone for being here tonight. I'm super excited to have this privilege. Really, this is really a kind of a new addition to our regular reading series, PANK Text Con, where usually we host and we feature two writers, two former contributors or authors from PANK, for really like some slow burn attention to their work. And obviously we're not able to do the physical encounters at the moment. And so it is so, I feel so fortunate to be able to be in the presence of these 7 wonderful writers whose books we're launching in the virtual tonight. And before we get started, I do just want to say some brief words to give a shout out to Dixon Place in the Lower East Side of Manhattan, who has generously hosted this reading series, and along with some of our partners, including poets and writers. So for a brief moment, I'm going to take my video off and become a television head, which is something of a dream of mine, while I announce these remarks. All right.
Amazing.
So this is by the way, I'm ventriloquizing Dixon Place. We so miss seeing you. While we can't meet in person during this unsettling antisocial distancing, we hope you'll tune in to DPTV for virtual literary, dance, variety arts, and theater programs. We'll add new live stream and pre-recorded events weekly. All of us here at Dixon Place send best wishes for your good health and peace of mind. We'd be so grateful if you consider making a donation to offset the loss of ticket and beverage sales that keep the visionary fires burning. And if you aren't familiar with Dixon Place, they're an amazing experimental, long-standing actually member of New York City's community, especially an advocate of LGBTQI community. So hopefully this quarantine will get lifted when it's safe and great to do that, and we can all again collaborate in person. But until then, we have tonight, we have together. And before we begin, just another announcement is just on the PANK side of things. We just opened submissions for our next year's contest, 2021, who's actually being judged by the first 4 writers, coincidentally, that are reading from their prize-winning books this evening. So after the reading, at some point, whenever you want, come check out pankmagazine.com, check out Submittable. I know that they'd love to read your work, and here's an opportunity tonight to kind of interact with them and to just kind of, talk about things that we would otherwise be able to in person. So yeah, Jess, did you want to make some remarks before the reading actually gets going?
Yeah, hi. First of all, thanks everybody for coming out and celebrating this launch with us. This is our first virtual one, so I hope it goes smoothly.
We hope we don't get Zoom bombed, basically.
But maybe at the very end, so we can like end it on that note. Just 2 more things. One, you can also buy all of these books on the PANK website. We would love for you to do that. And they're all up there, and you can read a little bit more about them as well. And we mentioned the contest. At the very end, we're actually going to be giving away some of the books. We're going to be doing like an open Q&A. You guys are going to type some questions into the author of your choice and ask them, and we're going to pick a few, and we will give away the book that that author has written to you. We do ask, though, that you have a U.S. mailing address for that. I think that's the only thing, and we'll go over that again real fast before we actually open up the questions. But be listening, be thinking, and hopefully you'll get a chance to ask some of these people what it is about their writing that you're interested in. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Howdy.
So we're gonna kick it off with Jody and Jess. You're gonna introduce Jody. Great.
Yeah, we're just doing some short bios here. You can learn more about all of our authors on our website as well, but we want to give them more time to read. So we're gonna start with Jody Chan, whose book All Our Futures is our Little Book Contest winner of last year, as chosen by Logan February. Jody Chan is a writer, drummer, organizer, a therapist in training based in Toronto, Canada. They are the author of Haunt from Damaged Good Press and Sick, which was winner of the 2018 St. Lawrence Book Award. And I'm just going to let Jody step on up.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. So yeah, I won't talk very much just for time's sake, but I wanted to give a content warning off the top for some things that might feel heavy in different ways as I'm reading, including mentions of self-harm, eugenics, and other forms of state violence. Yeah, it definitely felt heavy for me as I was going through like picking out pieces today to read. So please, yeah, take care of you and do what you need to do. So yeah, this chapbook of mine was like looking at climate change and the way that the distribution of its impact is eugenics, that eugenics is not just a policy of the past. And obviously we're seeing that play out now as well in this pandemic, in the way that COVID infections and deaths are distributed in Black communities, in the construction of pipelines on Indigenous land, putting Indigenous communities at risk, and in like triage protocols that determine who gets care, and like sick and disabled people being determined like not worthy of keeping alive, and in so many other ways as well. So yeah, those are some of the kind of the things that might come up. But yeah, back to the book and reading. It all started from a couple of very personal questions, which were, do I want to have kids? And what does it mean to? And what does it mean to like make a life in the midst of ongoing crisis? So yeah, that's where I'll start tonight. And actually, I'm going to start with the epigraph of the chapbook. So not my writing, but someone else's, because it's a poem that I've been coming back to. So I'll read a little bit of that. And is the audio okay for everybody? Cool. So here's the epigraph. Now I'm ready to lay myself down on the earth, to listen to the instructions for how to talk of love and land, to sing of home in the horrible years, and to fill my language, like the stars do, with the light, anyway, of a future tense. That's Araceli Skarmai from Prayer and Letter to the Dead. The future does not exist. Second by second, we drag our decisions backward into a now we can touch. We, so defined. My mother, grandmother, child filched from the not yet or never born. If someone who didn't love you or did has ever called you defective machine, if fix is the name of your sleepless wish, if you read lists as symptom clusters, hunting for a diagnosis to somehow tell the story, why the fire? Why the war, inside and elsewhere? If in your name the bodies accumulate in bodies of water, in namelessness or victim impact reports, and your name tires of playing your government's excuse, tell me the uses of naming. In less than a year, a government can redefine disability, excise a child's identity from their education, fund companies to continue eradication. Cut by cut, they rename murder budget balancing. No one is born clean. The gut full of floral colonies, our palms a glut of potential disease. We breathe and the world becomes us, blood cluttered by antibodies, by memories of intrusion. Before words, a baby severs its wet and utter darkness, unattached for the first time. Playing alone, she barely notices the toothpick stuck in her foot, red iron marring the white tiled floor. She's still there, her therapist says. Can you reach her? What we call madness is a strategy. A whole life can collapse post-infection into a new normal, what, not long ago, we could not live with. Reasons to have a child include children's books, the grief of losing what I never had, learning Cantonese so I can teach it, the scrunch on their nose when they taste something funny, parental pressure, to make junky crafts, to make a life, to revise my family's mistakes, to end the transmission of fear. After all this undoing, the chance to love with great gentleness and no expectation, their forehead scruff, their little shoes, their laughter unmistakable. What choices about children are undoable? To have, to steal, to cherish. By eugenicist logic, my grandmother endangers the rest of society by her depression seed. For my mother, too, the doctors advocated abortion. Given the choice, she chose. Not knowing why doesn't mean I was wrong, I hope, with the madness of a dog waiting for its first master to come home. The boxers you forgot in my bedroom prove you were here, or you aren't now, depending on the day. My mood dictates whether the sparrow collides with my window and flies away, or expires in the bushes. The lilacs shrivel, or they retreat shrewdly to prepare for winter. The shattered windshield, junk, or tool on the days where I depend on pain. The end of the world is coming, or we've already survived it, depending. Someone punches a fascist and is called a fascist. I vote sometimes. I kiss you in public and am sometimes not afraid. My parents commend the government for closing the gates. Depending on the day, we repeat history's mistakes or great progress has been made. Am I hopeful? Am I brave enough to cross the street holding your hand? The sparrow in my mind's eye, dead or alive, hurls itself at the glass until I decide. That summer, you leave me every day, blue and unrequited. Your heat dissipates wastefully into the air as I watch you go shivering. Static heat parches the city streets of those who can afford air conditioning. Ash scars our eyes, our throats, from wildfires 1,000 miles away. Heat in the body's water, sweat with nowhere to go. So I wonder if my lungs will last the night. So the hospital phones ring like rain. Officials count heat deaths lackadaisically, misplacing entire buildings. So many lost loves. Our ceiling fan pushes air, wetter than regret, hotter than skin. No draft, no grass, no shade for blocks. Doors locked from the inside, answering machines filling. Hello, are you okay? Please call me back. Mapping heat islands by feel, I find my way to your basement apartment. This part of town, chain link fences border old evergreens. When our hands touch, they boil. In the night's metal hum, we climb to the roof, feet heat swollen. You give me what I need, and I still need it. Contact, blackout, a missile seeking heat. Knowing what we know, if there is no time, to stem the floods, to sandbag the shores, to save the liminal species, even some, to say all of us with any meaning, to lament the scarcity of seconds, of sands in the planet's hourglass, to defile the monuments, to study the history of faces I carry in my own, to miscarry the urgent demands of my 5th protest, my 7th, etc. To convince my family I won't meet a good man and lose my lover, who I will love longer than their heavy-handed hope. To evict the white offices of presidents. To weather the ordinary storms of having a heart. Lost puppy love, workplace laments, the ordinary unraveling of a home. To divest the waters of their nature, inside and out. To swell, to swallow. To give up is a luxury, though we know the fickleness of hope. I am not innocent. You will not be. A life is made of wrongs we inherit to learn from, to eventually answer. I still want you to possess safety, ease, the consequence of knowing your face's origins. I'll love you different than the love I had, at least. Our stories, if nothing else, are ours to keep. Thank you. So is there like one more minute or no? Yeah. Yeah, cool. So the last piece that I wanted to read, in the chapbook, I kind of go back and forth between a few different voices, and one of them is the voice of the child that I imagine having in the future. Yeah, so this is in their voice from 2056. In the end, home is a place we made, where I lick clean the inside of my lover's teeth, where the faucets run out of water, where the concrete heat shimmers like an ocean she fetched for me. Her hands are good for such things, plucking basil from the plant she potted, reminding me of my body and that I am. Small memorials of word and gesture, making a whole life, gray pebbles in a fountain. Mom, a future looks like this. You are older than my popo, or yours were when they died, and in 12 years, I will be too. You never taught me ease, but there was always another banner to paint, another blockade. We raise our children the same way, by the syntax of trees, how to leave each other space, how to grow without bucking their roots. In smoke season, when we turn to the work of believing tomorrow will come, we revise the lullabies I know only in your voice. Though the air outside tests our lungs, we wander by stories, by questions like, if the world were good, who would we be? And the passage is worthwhile. We still waste time, though we have less of it than you did. Home is a place you choose to stay. You taught me that. Hope is no cure. That's what you used to say. There is no certainty. You just go on. Thank you.
Yay, that was amazing. Again, All Our Futures by Jody Chan. And stick around because you'll be able to ask Jody some questions at the end. Let's just keep on going. We're going to switch it up from poetry a little bit and move on to our 2019 nonfiction winner, Jolyn Chapman, selected by Maya Sonnenberg. Here's her book, Two Limb Lying In. Two things to note about it. One, we are doing an Instagram giveaway. We've been doing it all week. If you go to our Instagram page, which is just at PANK Magazine, you will see her book up to give away. All you have to do is be a follower of PANK Magazine, tag a friend in the comments. It's up today, so you will be able to still enter after this, and we'll announce all of the winners from all week's contests over the weekend, I think. But moving on, it is also Jolyn's birthday, so you're definitely going to want to stick around after and wish her a very happy birthday. We dragged her out here to read to you guys on her birthday when she, could be out doing fun things, but I guess that's not really an option right now. Okay, Jolyn Chapman serves as the assistant professor in the Jack Kerouac School at Naropa University. Her book Beast Life was published by Calamari Archive in 2016, and she's also published the chapbooks A Thing of Shreds and Patches from Essay Press, and The Form Our Curiosity Takes, also from Essay Press. And I'm going to let her just jump on up.
Thank you. I am not trying to be cute by having my children here. Their father is failing. Oh, he's probably listening upstairs, actually. He'll be down to get them. I'm gonna read an essay called Dark Grow Shining. Hang on a second. Okay, the little one's gone. So this essay is called Dark Grow Shining. I have spent so long thinking of light, and I have done this thinking in the solitude of midnight or in the sadness of early morning. In the absence of light, I think about it. So darkness resides within the living. There is a different kind of darkness in carrying a child, to have been the space of so much that can never be seen, to be the site of entry and then leaving. The flash that bedazzles me, Julia Kristeva writes of delivery, when I confront the abyss between what was mine and is henceforth but irreparably alien. Through the countless ultrasounds, I saw their bodies when they were in me, buried under those translucent layers of darkness, skin, fat, bones, and viscera. Sounds we could not hear made an image of what we could not see, guts, limbs, the edges of the heart, moth-like and galloping, the light and the shadow of my body. But more than imaging, the rhetorical gesture of apostrophe revealed difference and therefore existence, as when I called out the other body's movements, said, I feel you. As the probe slipped, she's okay, she's all right. As this probe slipped over the mound of my belly, I thought of the way the moon can sometimes appear so clearly from Earth, how the image on the screen seemed like a detail of its surface. The technician gave form to what I saw. Here are the hemispheres of the brain, chambers of the heart, penis and scrotum, the snail, she said, labia, a peach. For the installation piece, Earth, Moonlight Sonata, reflected from the surface of the moon, 2007, Katie Patterson translated Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata into Morse code and employed amateur radio operators to bounce the sonata off the moon. Because the moon reflects only part of the information back, Patterson explains, and the rest is absorbed in its shadow or lost in its craters, the sonata that returned is visually full of holes of various sizes. They take the jagged shape of clouds. In the installation, the score, translated from Morse code back into music, is played on an automated disclavier piano, emphasizing the absence of an agent. Like an ancient coin unearthed, the cohesion and integrity of the piece are degraded. The music seems to falter in its disappearances. It sounds as if it is both an attempt to play the music for the first time and music worn from too much playing. Ghostly and childish, decayed and naive. As the lesser light of the moon is allowed its triumph and crescendo, the actual moon's shadows swallow the sound, and our ear, habituated by our familiarity with the piece, is never satisfied. What leaves me, what returns? On the winter solstice, we take the children to the reservoir. Ice encrusts the shore like candle wax and blows off the water, suspended in air. We cannot see through it to the other shore. The day is brilliantly cold. The children cry. We leave after 10 minutes. At home, I make spicy soup. We light 3 candles and turn down the lights. Sitting around the table, we offer gratitude for the winter, cool air, the crunch of snow underfoot, an invitation to interiority, ladders and candy corn, silence, white sky, empty cornfields and their furrows full with snow, giant squirrels' nests revealed by bare branches. Asleep in his room, the baby is swaddled and seed-shaped at the center of night. He is our offering to darkness so that we might have our 3 points of light. The clumsy ritual merely winds a cord around darkness. Long before the shortest day of the year, the days had already been dark and long, long and thin. When I recall this time, I feel the flat, hungry night best, so that in November's sudden darkness that comes with changing the clocks, I did not despair because I did not know when one day ended and another began. We were either asleep or awake, either hungry or eating. An attraction to darkness threatens to exceed its boundaries. I think of how in the summer the sedum outgrows its pots, first dripping over the edge, then sending up erect flower stalks the color of summer itself, chartreuse. Or how one afternoon earwigs gush out of the joints of the children's sandbox into pine needles and soft sand so that I can hardly crush them with the plastic shovel. I sublimate it, double-veiled eye at night, stretch and project the senses, curl into the body to keep safe, fumble, deepen and sleep the breath, all that dark allows in its hiding. The summer after my daughter is born, I read Charlotte Bronte's strange novel Villette in bed. At the start of the 2nd chapter, we learn by her own admission that our narrator, Lucy Snow, is an overheated and discursive imagination. 2 urges pull her in opposite directions. She withholds herself so that she may watch others and remain intact, while at the same time her desire flares. Her reserve draws to her the ghosts she sees or the unchecked thoughts invent them. She's bored, neurotic, and annoying, and in her I recognize myself. A cold name she must have, Bronte explained to her publishers, partly perhaps on the lucus a non lucendo principle, partly on that of the fitness of things, for she has about her an external coldness. The lucus a non lucendo principle refers to any etymological contradiction. In Latin, lucus means dark grove, but it is derived from luco, the Latin verb to shine. Another example is the Old English root like and black, which produces both absolute darkness and glittering pale. Lucus a non lucendo is a neurosis in meaning that sustains it nonetheless. One evening when I am pregnant with my daughter, I sit under the blue spruce in our yard and watch from below as my husband and our neighbor play chess on the back porch. They forget or never know I am there. In the dark, I pray to the night, and the mosquito incinerating torches separate me from the dark cloud attached umbilically to me. Which prayers go unanswered? What does the dark hide from flame? There are shadows, which are the shape of objects, and there are reflections, which are the colors of objects. Both are doubles, projections, the way the world makes its way into us, the way material exceeds its boundaries. In the glass of the back door, my daughter identifies our shadows. I tell her, no, these are our reflections. A shadow is dark and a reflection is blue and brown and yellow, I say. I show her a video of a walk we took last fall. As the sun began its dip below the horizon, our shadows stretched out long in front of us. In the video, she lifts and stomps her feet to free herself of this dark viscosity. See, I say, pointing to the screen, that is a shadow. In the image, she does not recognize herself. A shadow is a darkening. She is an object that stands between light and a surface. She is a threshold. To produce a space of darkness is to be bathed in light. To pull the light away is to see the world clearly, but in the shape of her. I once felt that I could produce more light, but never fully eliminate the darkness, and that the light and shadow inside exchanged with the light and shadow outside. I felt them circulate within me. I felt the baby turning, and when I felt her, I pressed back so that for a moment she was in the palm of my hand. It was like reciprocity, a delineation between our bodies marked by the sensation of pressure. I am not talking about the dark room, which I assure my daughter nourishes our sleep. I am talking about the heavy thought, the one that makes the shadow grow up from my belly to my throat and spread like a mantle over my shoulders. Before sunrise, when the baby would wake me or when I was awake, anticipating her cries, I would go to her. In the rocking chair, I nursed her with my head slung back, trying to maintain the film of sleep while remaining careful not to drop her. Some nights, some early mornings, I sensed the dark as a threatening presence. I feared something might brush against my foot. I imagined I saw a dim, smoky cloud floating near the ceiling. As soon as her mouth fell away from the nipple, I laid her down and retreated. What blots out the light? What shines behind the dark thought? Now it's late spring. The fruit trees lost their blooms, the lilacs crumbled, the perfectly round peony buds unfurled, the puckered roses dilated. The sky is blue like flax that dissolves in the wind, then reappears in morning. Every day we come back to night and what it shelters. I think of myself as huddling in a shadow that grows smaller until equinox. This is not a metaphor. I drag the children in here with me, but they are kin to flame and throw themselves at it. This morning, we seemed to laugh at the same thing at the same time, and a possibility opened itself, being here together. And now the evening brings the smell of oil, soil, grass, and uncertain breezes, manure from feedlots north of here. And still I write of light by darkness. I write by proprioceptive habit of what light has revealed, space, so that I can write of light in its absence. But I cannot stop. The pen is the hand I drag along the wall, the hesitant step with a part of me that flickers out, probing a space for another presence. When did I stop sleeping? When did the imp of my sleeplessness transform from baby to mind? I can smell its presence in the grass and the rainstorm. It feels like noon heat. I waited in bed for the baby's cries, at which point I nursed her back to sleep and then sat under the trees, begging the god of night to give me some. By dawn, exhausted, I returned to my room, silently trying to refuse the sun's light, but hearing the song it pulls from birds. I cannot refuse it all. The baby sealed in her dark room with white noise also belongs to the world that light awakens, and so I woke to her cries, bleached by the scorch of my fatigue. I'm just going to skip ahead a little bit. To think without the world, is that possible? Is thinking more material than we know? The answer is at best inconclusive. There are affinities that escape our perception. The unknown is an immense reality. This is from Attila Adnan in Sea and Fog. The writing of Attila Adnan's Sea and Fog is not the drafting of Ponche's La Monnie, but it does not disguise its thinking, which, like Ponche's and Mersenberger's thinking, is inexplicable from the experience of the body living in the world. It's comforting to be reminded of the unknown, because the known, all that can be perceived, is always and already a disaster, even as it is beautiful and purpose-giving. The life I made is unsustainable. This fact saturates my perception of the world, and the world reinforces it. I am too tired to think that feeling comes easily, but even feeling passes through a net of language, or feeling is a kind of pore in the shape of language. I feel, and I make this thing, this fickle but steady thing, out of language. My mind wanders not to feeling, but to the created thing when the children scream at the breakfast table, or when I read to them the long book about the dog that is transformed into a gruesome creature by a witch, or when someone tells me what to do, or when in a flash I recognize the deformity of my thought. I go to long for the thing I am making. When I was a child in the country, from my bed at night, I could tell when my father was home because the lights from his car's headlights would travel along the walls of my bedroom. Sometimes, rarely, the car belonged to someone else driving out in the country, and in that case, I would wait for the sound of the garage door to open, but it never would. I was a child once, too, disappointed by my parents. The overlaid shadows of leafless branches creates a tight thatch of dark lines on the wall. It reminds me of the artist Harry Winter's branching structures, but in reverse, like a negative of that painting. Another inversion, this is not the shadow of tree branches, but the shadow of its roots. Instead of drawing the shadows, I use them to erase the letter I have written for my daughter on her 2nd birthday. I make a photocopy of the handwritten letter and tape the pages to the wall. With charcoal, I trace the shadow of branches. What information reflects from the surface? What is absorbed in the shadow? That is, could I read the text like I look at light? Vaporous dream, soft time, every sense open, detached, excluding nothing. Let me try. A sentence runs across the page, blends into coal, repeats but unexpectedly. Ugly slices across the page, a language of longing remains. Flakes of punctuation, and you and I, you who are not I. Memory of the green flash of when you were mine, when the doctor pointed at the screen and said, that's the pregnancy, cautiously. She thought we would miscarry. You are mine to lose, I am yours to consume. Repetition of address, catalog of daily life, splashed by coal like losing memory, and in the shadows the you might remain, hidden and singular. Sadness disrupted by dark, the harm of eyes longing interrupted, the nourishment of eyes attention persisting. I began to feel, slowly and remarkably, as if I belonged to the trillion luminaries dividing night from day. Another summer, and the leaves block out the streetlight entirely. The wall at night is solid shadow. In the day, the sun's rays score this darkness toward a circumference made of all light, fanned out in blue, yellow, and red. The irony is that darkness is so intimate with the sun that from Earth we cannot see that its light is not absolute. Darkness wraps it like a skin. Thank you. Sorry for all the interruptions. And also thank you for everyone else who's reading tonight. I meant to say that at the beginning, but I got distracted. Thank you.
Thank you, Julian. And I think it was actually very fitting that your children made an appearance. Your book is so focused on your children.
That's my excuse. Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Julian Lyon, and you can buy it on the website, of course, but you still have a chance to enter on our Instagram as well. Okay, let's just keep rolling on. Next up is our poetry contest winner from 2019, selected by Trace DePaz, How to Love the World by Elvira Basevich, who is right up there in my corner at least. And this is your first poetry book, I believe. Actually, I think this might be everybody's first full-length book here tonight that's doing a full length, and they'll correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I'm right. Elvira is a poet and an assistant professor of philosophy at the University of Massachusetts in Lowell. Her poems have appeared recently in Hayden's Ferry Review, Poached Hare, Tri-Quarterly, the Gettysburg Review, and Blackbird, and I'm going to let her take on over.
Hi. Thank you for being here. I'm really excited to read from my book. Just to give you a little bit of context, the inspiration for the book came when I lost my mother to severe mental illness. I was in my early 20s and I wanted to find a way to kind of cope with that loss. And what I did, it took me 6 years to write the book. And what I did in the aftermath of that loss is I retraced my mother's journey as a Jewish Uyghur refugee, visiting the cities that she had to pass through, and I was born along the way. So that's sort of, the poems are written in the tradition of epic poetry, and it's sort of, I'm telling the story of my mother and then ultimately my own birth. All right, so this poem is called Learning to Walk. I unburden you from the weight of my body. Red stamps bled into our portraits in the visa application like a bloom of jellyfish. A people who will never return to the cities they planted. Seditious writers thankful that liberty had only cost them the gold fillings in their teeth. One suspicious fall from a balcony, a sleigh ride pulled by a troika of dogs, and bad dreams, alternatively considering and reconsidering suicide or the synagogue. In the crowded waiting rooms of immigration offices, a TV played daytime talk shows to help us with our problems, to teach us good English and offer us words of advice. In America, you must never wear the same shirt 2 days in a row. In America, armpits must be perfumed with deodorant every morning without exception. And the outcry over Madonna's '89 music video for Like a Prayer meant definitively, in America, remember, Jesus is not Black. You are asked to sit on a stool in front of a camera, to look to your left for what would become the only photograph of us taken that year. I look at it now as if I were reading the lines of an enormous poem that would carry us to Rome, the way children escort a beetle from one leaf to another. This is how I learned to speak 4 languages in Cruz alone. And you knew that one day I will be a great philosopher and a poet to boot. That I'll try my hand at love and lose at first, and then win and win and win. When you walked away, my head tucked against your shoulder. Inside you, I felt fidelity move like Aeneas's fleet. In the dusk, the swans still gather, the burnt up flags of our departure. This one is called Wild Dreams. I wonder if you daydreamed about ice cream cones or made conversation with the fruit vendor. If it bothered you when, out of pity, he slipped you extra plums or a packet of almonds. If you looked up at the Ferris wheels swinging wooden cars and held your breath, considering briefly, oblivious to the drift of your own thoughts, buying yourself a ticket, maybe 2. As a teenager, a homeless drunk I had befriended gave me a bracelet made of real silver for Christmas, together with the Macy's receipt to prove that he had purchased it, singing on trains in the dead of winter. I promptly ended the friendship. I had cost him $50. When he caught up with me demanding, who is he if he can't give a gift? Really working for it like an ordinary man. Well, it turns out that the ordinary is a carnival mirror. If you approach it from without, if you pay too much attention, it shatters you into shards of hideous pink light. This is why a sense of self is the pure gold baby, the miracle that knocks you out. On that wooden car, it must have felt good to sit down and just feel the night move. As the blue whale of the sky glides back home to Almaty. I wonder how the city would have appeared to you then, drowning in light bulbs. When an ordinary joy comes crashing in, the world can seem like a drunk wedding party. A blue shade in cloth is weaving. And the man you love raises a toast to you, half asleep draped in the early morning light, before being thrown out into the gutter. If only a spectacular punch-drunk love was there at the last stitch, with a bloodied nose and torn blazer, smiling from ear to ear like an idiot, ready to walk you home. To start over properly, it's not enough for me, all these years later, to open a window and look out of it, to walk the streets of Rome, Rostov, or Bolshoi Aksu, to fall in love with everyone I meet, as if I were climbing a galloping horse and just had to hold on tight. In a refugee camp in Lebanon, a journalist writes to me about families who sleep in tents barnacled with stars. His kerosene lamp gathers children in the circle of its light. He asks them about their wildest dream, and they each ask him for a bicycle. A bicycle, he writes. And this poem is called The First Word. So the entirety of the poetry book is written to my mother, but this poem is dedicated to my father, and it begins with an epigraph by Aimé Césaire. I wish to confess that we were always quite undistinguished dishwashers. Okay. A homesick sailor harbors amongst pile of tin cans and rotting vegetables, cast out from his tribe by an angry father. A prophet who emerged from a cave carries a live recording of Orpheus singing to the shades that burns up farmsteads and sets the villagers running. In yeshiva, the stories, truly, none of them made sense. And the impression they gave of God, he didn't seem very preoccupied with how men plundered grain or bartered their daughters. I remember that he rested after raging stars into arches and galloping horses, built oceans and stocked them with fish, set the moon in the clouds. During a rainstorm in Galilee, evil was born without anyone noticing, like the sprouting of a weed or the least complicated algae. I don't know how much of this is true. After all, you had convinced the rabbi to accept $25 a month to take me in, and the teachers assigned Sesame Street to the fourth graders. All the same, I wondered about God's departure. In his empty bed, countries were collapsing, welfare checks went unsent, languages were written from left to right. Still warm to the touch, the soil print of his hands sinks into my pillowcase, falls in snowflakes into the Detroit River. I forgive you that you had enough animal warmth for just one, and you passed it between us like a bottle of vodka between drunks. I'm not oppressed by the sun rolling back like a giant eyeball over the countries that didn't want us. And I forgive you for growing homesick for a world I couldn't restore to you, whatever trials a God invented for me. I'm glad there are no more stalls bursting with horseshit to clear, no more girls tied to the sides of a mountain to fall in love with and marry. Above all, that nothing I will do will make this right, because, as it turns out, we both live just a breath above the stinking ocean, with memory the slowest but most persevering sea monster. And I'll read just one more poem. Okay. This one is called Would You Believe It? I'm no longer 16. Impossible, really. That I will not again crack sunflower seeds on the salt-bitten boardwalk as a pink gossamer slowly alights over the dripping void of the early morning, carrying in its belly the muted glory of another day on earth, a bone that keeps washing ashore, a child that insists on being born. I won't talk through the night again to junkies, dozing to the clicking cowbell of withdrawal, a pockmarked moon face hanging over us, as if we're peeking inside a baby carriage, easing our loneliness. Wherever I might go now, you won't send police cruisers after me, or watch with me seagulls throw up bits of a crab, a shard of a dream that cuts the flesh when it releases you, as you turn red in the face with worry over my future. In the winter agony of Coney Island, where an old rabbi still blows his horn in a sad refrain, and blue-grays settle over the blinking arcades and wharves like a case of diphtheria, I did not learn anything at all. You were right. All my friends were idiots. I will not pull back again, a string over the rim of your guitar, and pick seaweed out of my hair, as if it were a lesson in cartography. This is where my soul first flew to me. This, where my knees turned in a little, the hands that came to open them, kiss them, that I won't be kissed again for the first time, just about anywhere on my body. Tomorrow morning, in line at the welfare office, you'll exchange compliments with the secretary, boredom silvering her eyes like a moonbeam from a Bulgakov novel, forced to look at childhood photographs of someone she does not love. And who really wants all this misery? Even a poet eventually tires of it. The seagulls will not return the last piece of your dream. They will cry for you when you no longer need them to. Maybe it only appears this way because God lives longer than we do. In the fat velvet ropes that droop in between immigrant mothers waiting on a ration of eggs and milk, in the prayers we used to scatter together at the marina like a crust of moldy bread. We understand little of things' abrupt end, and even less when they stubbornly continue. And yet, it just so happens that whenever I stand in the enduring glow of the Atlantic Ocean, I still believe that your life was the only thing that mattered. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Elvira. It's amazing. I can't get Madonna's Like a Prayer out of my head right now. So up next, we have our inaugural fiction prize winner for our PANK Books contest, Melissa Ragsly, author of We Know This Will All Disappear. Beautiful book. So Melissa is a writer living in the Hudson Valley. Her work has appeared in Best American Non-Required Reading, Best Small Fictions, Iowa Review, Hobart, and other journals. And you can check out more of her work at melissaragsly.com. Give it up for Melissa.
Hi. Okay, I think I'm unmuted. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to read two short flashes tonight. This first one is called Present Tense, and it's actually, I'd really consider it more CNF than fiction. So I I mean, I might cry a little bit. I don't know. Things have been making me cry lately, as I'm sure things have been making everybody cry lately. So I'll try my best not to. Okay. The first thing you do when you walk into my apartment is to go to the bathroom to wash your feet. This takes longer than I expect, but you're very drunk and you're breathing hard, not just from the smoking or the stairs, but also from the singing. You are uncomfortable in your work shoes, but more uncomfortable with the way your feet smell in an apartment that is not your own. You will not risk it. There's a process. You need to take off the shoes and the sheer black socks too. They're damp with the cold, but also with your sweat. You can never keep from sweating, even on the first really cold day in early December. I hear behind the closed bathroom door the water turning on and off. I hope you don't puddle the floor like you do sometimes. When the faucet is shut, I hear you trill something familiar. The Pointer Sisters? Not the lyrics, just the melody in oohs and coos. You squirt liquid hand soap in the tub, since when you tried to use the sink that last time you fell and almost hit your head on the toilet. When you come out, your feet are clean and dry, and I smell lavender. Your pinky toenails need attention. They curl over uncut. Your feet are the smallest part of you. You've always been big. You showed me that video your mom had done at the mall in Bayonne, an early iteration of green screen, where you stood in front of a staticky rendering of the Brooklyn Bridge, like you've just jumped off of it and landed standing in the river. On the little TV at your mother's in Jersey City, you looked uncomfortable. What were you, 11? A zebra patterned t-shirt and short set, watered down new wave from a department store's husky section. Your skin looked stretched across a growing frame, a boy awkwardly looking at the camera, forced to be there by a well-intentioned mother. But it wasn't that simple. There was a hint in the way you connected to the lens. You didn't mind being in front of it. There was a reason to be there, just the wrong time. You couldn't be something good if the first thing people thought when they saw you was something bad. On the screen, I saw your hope that your body was just temporary. You've told me how it feels to have people look at you and immediately only one word comes to mind. We're all reduced to one word, I rationalized. And you asked what I thought the word would be for me, and I paused and guessed girl. You said, there's nothing wrong with being a girl, but fat is something you're always trying to change. I'm something that no one wants to be. You had the same face then that you do now. I can't help but put you in the present tense, but this is all in the past. The last time I saw you was in your casket, so strange to see you there in a suit, just like at work, except your eyes are closed and all these coworkers sit on folding chairs watching a slideshow projected above you. We look at the dead you and the captured living you at the same time. I haven't seen these people since I left the job, fired really. I don't work, just take the baby to the park and push the stroller and listen to podcasts, needing to hear people talk, not sing. I came for you because I hadn't talked to you in a while, and I kept meaning to. I hadn't heard you sing since that last night at karaoke. You still have the look of an altar boy with a strangely dated pompadour. Your cheeks are still as red as ever. Are you even 30 now? A few days before, your father told me you couldn't breathe, and you went to the doctor, and they questioned you. Why are you here? They told you that you should be in the ER. They called the ambulance, and you died inside of it while it was in motion, the sirens blaring down Newark Street. Forget this place. Let's hear you sing. In our private karaoke room, we bring a tower of plastic cups from the office kitchen and screw-top wine from the liquor store. I buy a bag of chips at the deli. You sing Jolene and you sound like Dolly. You sing Cabaret and you sound like Liza. You sing Complicated and you sound like Avril, over-enunciating all of the words to make fun of her voice. You're funny, too. You have the song binder in front of you, and while you scan it, you fold a foot up onto your knee and rub it through the leather. They hurt you, and you have that look on your face like you want to sing some blues, some man done me wrong shit. That body you feel trapped in, you know a song is its escape route. We finally sing a duet. It's one of the only times you sing a man's part. You are Eminem and I am Dido. I never know any of the words you sing. I have to read along. But my part, I can close my eyes. It's not so bad. It's not so bad. You say I sing well, but I'm always just under the note and flat. But we're not here for me. I take the binder, I open it up to a random page, and I let my fingertip fall. I plug in the code and wait for whatever song comes. Sing yourself out. Doesn't matter what plays. Your voice is a skeleton key. When it's over, we'll make our way back to my place, and you can clean up yourself, and you can sleep. Okay, thank you. Okay. So this next one is the story that opens up the collection. It's kind of a little bit about California, and I've just been kind of obsessed with California for the last few years. It's called All You've Heard Is True. This is the most alive I've ever felt, sundialed all up to white and a breeze from the ocean leading me by the shoulders. The end of the country, California, the beginning of the Pacific. I follow the boy out to the pool. JR in his swim trunks, a pillar of towels stacked in his hands, leads the way down a bright hallway. The sun is everywhere. Lucille grabs my hand, her eyes tick-tock across his ass. A smile takes over her face. She makes a sound like she's looking at a plate of oozy, melted cheese. Tightening her grip, she says, I just want to fuck him. California is a place where mothers talk of their sons this way. Cordless headphones muff JR's ears. He surprises a song in a falsetto. The windows are everywhere. All the houses around the hills are like glass. You can feel the day from the radius around you. This is where you're allowed to be so alive you can speak your feelings. Everyone talks, nobody walks. Let me live this moment over and over again, always alive. I'm here and not back east with my sons. I miss seeing them, but when I hear their little spiderweb voices saying, Mama, always a question. I can never be sure if they're really alive. I can hear the dead because I was once one of them. When I was 6, I died for 2 minutes. All that you've heard is true, except the bright light is made of sound. When you pass, you hear all the voices of those that have ever loved you all at once until the chorus turns to an opaque alabaster. It's warm milk, slowly getting hotter, making your body burn until you realize you're no longer a body. Above all the voices, I heard my mother's. After she saw my body, she decided to die next to me. I drank her medicines, morphine, Xanax, Rohypnol, over-the-counter cough syrup. I'd seen her take them all the time. I didn't know they could be poison. Too much of anything can kill you. Too much love, too many voices, too much white. I woke up, but my mother stayed gone. I could hear her all my life, and when my sons learned to speak, I picked up that same tone. In their voices, the world flashed a glow of all the syllables bouncing off their tongues. It bleached out everything. My children speak to me, and they sound like ghosts. The deck is white and wraps around the in-ground pool. The water's green, not clear blue. As I expected, it turns red like a shark attack, then back to green again. I must look shocked, and Lucille laughs at me. Honey, they're Christmas lights. Slices of mango and pineapple sweat on snowflake dishes. Lucille sits on a chaise and tells me to watch JR on the diving board. He churns his hips and pumps his arms over his head. His weight dips the end of the board. The water is swamp green, then red like a bloodbath. JR's clasped hands pierce the water, and Lucille, all creamy, says, "My son is a star." Lucille wants to hear my story. That's why she flew me out. She runs a development company seeking out projects for JR. He eels through the water like his limbs are attached to his trunk. He swims through his core, and the force of his head tears through the water. This mother will buy my life for her son. After the pool, he takes me for a drive. JR just got his license and a 1978 Spider. We lean into curves on a highway that buffers the beach. The road slinks in and out towards the edge of the land, daring the waves to come and get us. Reflecting the sun back at us, the Pacific is an X-ray. JR hands me his phone open to a filter app. Takes some candids of me driving, and while he's beautiful, I can't get a good picture of him. I'm finding the angles that don't flatter. I'm catching the blink of his eye, a squint, even through the sunglasses. They're all a blur. I check my ex's accounts. He posts pictures of the kids now, since I left. He wants me to see that life goes on, even if I'm not there. He wants me to see them smiling and playing and visiting all the places you take children, where you buy them fries and their mouths smile ketchup, the kind of places that come with milk boxes. Inside of the screen, in their silence, they're alive. Without me, they'll be free to live, and they'll hear me again when they die. Switch the camera, and it's looking at me, and the sun brings out my paleness, and my hair is a crackling flame smacking my cheeks. I see in my eyes a life I've never seen before. I close out of the camera, and the screen goes blank. The song JR was singing earlier comes on the radio. It's actually him singing the recorded version. Lucille did tell me he was a star. The IRL JR sings along, harmonizing with himself, and the sound spills into the car, like we've submerged in an ocean with no escape. I hear my mother singing too, a sort of an apology. JR adjusts as if he hears her too, or maybe he can hear the voice of his mother, her love, so extreme, it verges on carnal. I can't see anything over the brightness. I don't know how he can either. There's not even a road. We're just driving on paths of light. I close my eyes until I can see my own voice singing along. I hope my boys can hear me soon. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Melissa. It was amazing. I haven't heard Bayonne in a performance in a minute. I haven't heard that word being spoken, so I really appreciated that. A reminder too, as we're moving on, you are more than encouraged, anyone here, to ask any of our authors any questions. You don't have to post them now in the chat, but you can, or you can leave all of us in suspense and wait till the end of the program. Either way, we're looking forward there. I'm sure they're looking forward to all of your questions. Up next, we have Christine Hume, who's the author of A Different Shade for Each Person Reading the Story. Christine is the author of a lyric memoir in the form of 3 interlinked essays, Saturation Project, as well as 3 books of poetry. Her chapbooks include Lullaby, Speculations on the First Active Sense, Ventifax, Atalanta, and an Anatomy, and a collaboration with Jeff Clark, Question Like a Face, a Brooklyn Rail Best Nonfiction Book of 2017. Since 2001, she has been faculty in the Interdisciplinary Creative Writing Program at Eastern Michigan University. Please welcome Christine Hume.
Hi. Can you hear me okay? Awesome. So thank you to Chris and Jessica for this beautiful chapbook. It's an essay that's structured as a index or a catalog. So each page begins with a different kind of red. Thank you. And then a short description of it that veers into something else entirely. And it sort of came from several distant places. One is some research I did about 20 years ago on reading and Keats. And then my sort of closeted life as a dyslexic would be the sort of core of the essay. And I was asked to give this presentation to the Michigan Dyslexia Association, which was a kind of reckoning for me. And also the other thing that I'm pulled into it were pieces that had fallen out of another work I was writing that's a kind of chromopoetics. And the essay begins with 2 epigraphs, but I'm going to read you 2 different epigraphs instead, just why not? The first one is an anonymous pedagogue from the mid-1800s who says, "Compulsive reading is a foolish and harmful abuse of an otherwise good thing, a truly great evil, as contagious as yellow fever in Philadelphia." Just to give you some sense of the history of reading. And Gertrude Stein is the other one. "If red isn't everything, it's not necessary." Cadmium. The color I imagine my living human insides to be: warm, muscular, toxic. Reading seems like a magic trick staged for others, an act of divination, a holographic illusion. I'll play some music with this. My body turns itself inside out when I try to read it. Heat on my cheeks, sweat skin, red stammer in my throat. Blushing pushes light years between me and the page. My vitals become the magnetized pole of yes, no. I get by on hunches and luck, figuring and refiguring. I assume postures of reading as if it were a kinetic activity. I pretend to see through objects, see past the surface of things into the future. Sure, I can imagine my own gruesome death. I'm here, dead here on the page, where I rely on you in another time zone to bring me to life. You in a circle of bystanders begin to form like skin around my body. Flayed on the pavement, guts spilling out, luminous viscera spelling out the next omen. When hidden reds are brought into the open, like oxide mineral extracted from a mine or an ancient fresco found buried under a church floor, their color immediately dissolves into the blank light of day, already forgotten. Candy apple. A round stain and a taste that changes the shape of your mouth. I curl up on our striped couch and hold a book in my lap. Reading, I could be sure no one would bother me. No one would order me outside or into chores. I could just hemorrhage time in peace. I let my mind stretch into its own far-fetched treetops and swirl into interstellar eons. I did not make up stories because I could not imagine resolutions. I could not link cause and effect or create ligatures between flashes. I wandered into mundane and absurd moments. I knew how to free associate and disassociate with equal ease. If I could make a grown man groan, I could surely read a few sentences. I did not think about my grandfather's hands down my pants or up my shirt, his face on my neck, his weight on top of me at night, while my grandmother labored daily to teach me to read. That part is easy to leave out. There were no words for it. Those afternoons, I was abandoned by text. I was not on his lap then. And this story, if you can call it that, does not end that way. Geranium Lake. The red you sleep through, the red that only exists in dreams. If red were to fall asleep, it would mock human dishonesty. It would use up time and dream of its opposite. Red runs ahead and cannot wait for me. My body is a dream that mocks its own imagination. Reading is a dream of my body flying, a dream that produces red by itself. Sentences streak by, book, 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 pen, vivid swaths of red ink on the page, so vibrant it seems to hum just above its own stain. If red were to wake up after 200 years, it would find itself the object of tender buttons. Red doesn't bifurcate into subject and object. No, the word runs where the world runs out, quote. Out of kindness comes redness, and out of rudeness comes rapid same question, unquote. To put reading in the past tense means to turn the page red. Cardinal. A flutter in your stomach and in the greenness of trees, multiple speeds of being that catch on each other and pull holes in time where whole lives fall through. Pity the text that relies on me to perform it. I spew a palimpsest of guesses. My voice harbors remnants of disarticulation and consolidates the anxiety of writing itself. My voice involuntarily indexes the time of thinking and the time of reading, the time of experience and the time of vocalization, the time of causation and the time of digression, the time of blitzkrieging through a chaos of phonemes and the time of processing my own panic, the time of contented absorption and the time of agitated humiliation. Paradox shudders between temporal realms. Confected time lags behind annex time. An emergency of minutes mismatches the day-dreamt surplus of seconds. The book's time grafted over my own. Asynchronous perception of time creates an inner out-of-sync feeling. My thoughts speed ahead and sideways, every which way, as the slow, steady decoding keeps another beat. I tap my foot to keep the text in rhythm. My mind flies off, the text plods onward. Time stops moving as I move through it. Auburn. The color of a curse and the place it took hold. My professor's entire apartment was red. Carpets, curtains, furniture, the kitchen cabinets lined with hot sauces. Entering it took some breath. Her glassy-eyed dog greeted me with abandon, leaping around me like a flame. That sunless winter, while dog-sitting for her, an electromagnetic field of vermilions buffered me from the city. I was inside a fire that needed no stoking, a fire that smelled like flora, where eyes seemed to be hiding. I dyed my hair auburn, making a stain on her bathroom floor, for which she later scolded me. She said, my boyfriend could not stand to come over. He said he felt swallowed. He said he is not a boner machine. I slipped into one of her red robes and read my own sentences. Red erases red and reverses the vertigo of habit. Rimbaud says, I is red, smile of beautiful lips, in anger or in the raptures. True, I is a mixed bag of ambivalences, as attracted to linguistic confusion as red itself. A somber red ochre from Sinope on the Black Sea begat a medieval color, Sinople, which could be either red or green. On a shelf in her apartment, I discover she has written a book called Mood Swings. Living 2 months in that red apartment, though, I felt simpler. I became saturated and ascendant. My body seemed stretched, gravity resistant, like a figure in a mannerist painting and making the most of it, or like one of those tiny female figures engulfed in Matisse's magisterial red studio. Matisse says a certain red has an effect on blood pressure, and more, a fleet of red speeds your lungs, stings your nose, it hollows bones. I walked her blind dog 3 times around the block 3 times a day. I sat in the red rooms and rarely left. When I did, green followed me, burst forth from a secret germination. Grassy snowbanks piled around verdant buildings. As I walked through the mesmerizing green stream of faces. After my excursion, I unlocked the little red door to my temporary Mars. Here was my booster shot, far exceeding the basic daily requirement. I became a chronic user of red. That's it, thank you.
Wow, thanks so much, Christine. Such an immersive experience. Yeah, I also just at this point want to again thank everyone for being here, for sharing and holding this space all together. We really appreciate it. So up next we have Shira Dentz, author of Sisyphusina, a beautiful, wonderful intertextual and mixed media collection. Shira is the author of 5 books, including Black Seeds on a White Dish, Door of Thin Skins, a cross-genre memoir, How Do I Net Thee, a National Poetry Series finalist, and The Sun Ablazing Zero. She's also the author of 2 chapbooks, Leaf Weather and Flounders. Everyone give it up for Shira Dentz.
Thank you, Chris. Okay. Everybody can hear me okay? All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming. And it's really great to hear all of you read. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about my book first. So Sisyphusina is centered on the experience of female aging, which I felt like didn't have that much expression, or at least as much as, you know, there's a lot of stuff expressing about male aging. And so this book is very asymmetrical in its visual layout. It also has images in it. And as you might imagine, beauty is a main concern in it, among others, because femininity is very often associated with beauty and with the image of a rose. And so the image of a rose recurs throughout here. Also, I collaborated with the composer Pauline Oliveros on some of this, and there is a link, there's a QR code at the end of the book that links to a piece of music that she improvised for Sisyphusina, and she titled it Aging Music. So you can access this as well. Another thing I will say is that it's also an interweaving of my own personal experiences related to aging and my particular circumstances, and also social norms related to aging and advertising. And like, for instance, in France, the lotion business being sold to teens is like a gigantic profitable business of creams to eliminate wrinkles for teens. So, so it's really a collage of the personal and the collective, and also multi-genre. Okay, so I'm going to begin with reading one of the Sisyphusina pieces, which also is, I believe, an equal opportunity. So hence Sisyphusina. And there are a few Sisyphusina pieces in here. Okay. Sisyphusina. So tired, rocks settling in back of my eyes, bone particles of sand and flat, smooth black rocks plus a waterfall equals a Zen garden, but not calm, immeasurably loaded. Flat, smooth rocks and a waterfall. Black vultures fly so high in southern Africa, tradition says they see the future. Immeasurably and loaded, like Dickinson's gun. A vista crawls through dugouts or, depending on the observer's position, pillows of gray static. Vultures fly high, want to sit this one out. Matter crawls through pillows, gray. Listen to winds changing seasons, winter wind, spring wind, summer winds, fall. I want to sit, sleep the color of iron, pressing in between. Wind, a new season, pause at tree branches. Vultures use gravity as a tool, dropping bones to the ground to crack open their marrow. And this is a navel. A navel is punctuation, a space for a space. Yeah, the tree out there has a full head of hair now, lifting and bobbing, weather giving it a whole different personality. Gray sky tussled by trees. Grass, a child, her dew, his wraps, fresh clings, her father, and she attaches like dew to grass, sticky. Child alone is growing her. Whatever she cores, contact, her sticky, dew clings, mother sticky, child wraps, contact, growing dew, attached on dew, of dew navel, alone wraps her, barred core, alone mother core, a child navel, alone, whatever sticky, child she core, alone a core, dew green mother, the alone was fresh sticky, father grass, growing, was, is, mother, child, fresh. Child, growing, clings, her green attached alone. Gray sky tussled by trees. Green quilt of leaves and a green starfish attached to a tomato's navel. Okay, redshift. What with this kind of flash, perhaps not so fast, honey. Pinch can't stop curling static. Try liposuction. Have you gotten older and no matter what you do, you can't lose weight, can't lose those folds you never had before? Take pieces, sweat, acoustics and damp. I like and lick that voice static. I half now be mixing, drenched, don't lose, pinching me head, my to pinching male, forget. How flowering can voice forget? I twig ideas static, white pieces like minutes, yoga like sound, and head has pants. I waking 7 a.m. Go wait, blooming male, can't fork minutes. Voices wait, curling. Anxiety, my volcanic folds lose this blue heat. Birds, a pocket of air. Breeze sloping cotton, birds sloping calm. Breeze alone percussive, alone more cotton. Clouds, lawn, the luminous noon, field shadow. A tittering, quite pretty. Outside, rushing interior. Luminous green cover, percussive. It's the rushing feels beautiful. Luminous distance, green time like clouds of solitude, the well interior, the air, calm, percussive. Birds, that's air. Clouds, being of the past, tittering. Seasoned. Not being authentically original, moving. I should enjoy my nothing tree looking at other trees. I can become as change, or might just be too laborious. Water is no color, it's period of time. Weather getting antsy now, the darkness and sparkles, because color is absent from influenced by other things. Then am ponderosa, look-alike, a sea creature, because it is clear, with leaves lapping. Okay, I'm going to read one more. And so I'm going to close with another Sisyphusina poem. Very eye of flowers, wisps, arching, extreme weather ever that I'd be like the world and give them fructose syrup. Honey from their hive and ghost dancers, flowers black and give the night. How there's still room for doubt about bees' honey from their hive, light as lace. Do you think looks matter? Over 500 million people can't afford vision correction. Look. My body, guilt and confusion, people can't afford visions in me, Sisyphusina. Ghost has a verb, noun. The ghost has a verb, noun. Beauty blossoms with age. Ghost, beauty blossoms wisps are with age. I gilt as lace. Beauty blossoms with a verb, noun. Ghost has a verb, no escape. Rose is a familiar place, a repeat female. O verb, no escape. O verb, noun. Rose into leave. Rose body, white wisps. Rose into the lace, white with age. Ghost arching to leave. Rose is a verb, noun. Rose is Virginia Woolf voice, female. Ghosts are white wisps, arching like dancers, light as lace. Thank you very much.
Yay, thank you, Shira. And also, I believe Shira painted this cover, which is absolutely beautiful. So, yes.
Thank you.
Usually our covers are photos from our authors. So I'll show you Monica's next because I'm about to introduce her. But this is our last reader. And again, we're going to open the floor to questions as soon as Monica is done. So I hope you've been thinking about some things to ask because we want to send some of these books your way. All right, so this one's really special. This is a choreo poem. And before I introduce Monica, as we're showing you the interiors, I just want to kind of show you what you're about to get your hands on here. Really cool visually as well as verbally. Okay. Monica Prince is a Black performance poet raised by Guyanese parents, teaches activist and performance writing at Susquehanna University in central Pennsylvania, where she writes choreo poems and performance poetry. Her debut collection, Instructions for Temporary Survival, won the Discovery Award for an outstanding first collection by the publisher Red Mountain Press. She is the managing editor of another incredible press, the Santa Fe Writers Project. She's also the author of the chapbook Letters from the Other Woman by Gray Book Press. And she's probably got something really fun in store for us. So here she goes.
Yay! Oh, I'm so glad to be here. So I have lots of thank yous to everyone who's here. I see all of my, like a bunch of my students and my colleagues and my friends from college and some of my, it's really just dope to see all of you here. So thank you for being here. Okay, so this is my book. It's beautiful. I'm really excited about it. I'm going to read 3 poems from it, but I want to explain what a choreo poem is first. So a choreo poem is a choreographed series of poems. It was created by Entasaki Shange in 1975 with her choreo poem For Colored Girls Who've Considered Suicide When the Rainbow's Enough. It's beautiful and fabulous and magical, and I appreciate that I'm ending this with Jody starting it, because Jody's piece talked a little bit about how she was navigating the question of, should I have children? And that's low-key why I started this choreo poem, because I turned 27 and I panicked, which I guess is what happens when you get older. And so I started this choreo poem with a friend of mine who I think is actually in the audience, and we decided not to do it together, which is okay. But now I have this whole thing and it's very exciting. It was first premiered at Susquehanna University in 2018, and it's low-key the reason why I have my job now, which is very exciting. So I'm gonna read 3 pieces from it. How it starts is a character named Angela. She has the realization that the world wants her labor but doesn't want her body. And she fractures into 6 different characters named Silence, New, Fear, Expectation, Loss, and Fury. And those 6 characters run most of the choreo poem, and they're navigating their experiences through the rest of the choreo poem. So as they work together to try to bring Angela back together, they spend the entire show trying to put her back together. And so those 6 characters also make up the Sestina suite. There are 6 Sestinas in this poem, in this choreo poem. If you don't know what a Sestina is, get at me. I can explain it. And so I'm actually going to read two sestinas. The first one and the last one are sestinas, and then the middle poem is not. I don't know. So that's what this is. So the first one I'm going to read is the first sestina of the Coria poem, which is called When Asked About Power, I'll Tell Them. And this is done with all 6 of the characters. At our launch at AWP, I had a bunch of random people from the audience read it, but because it's just me, I'm just going to read it. So pretend I'm 6 people and it's going to be fine. Okay. When asked about power, I'll tell them, my mother said Black women live in fear, anxious, born that way. Brand new bodies full of panic, constantly expecting the worst, never taught differently. Losing such vigilance begets our death, so we stay silent, quiet as it's kept, nursing our fury, hoping it doesn't kill us first. Hell hath no fury like a grieving woman, paralyzed by her fear of entombing her own child, maybe herself. The news uses Black bodies as jokes, target practice. You expect our hands to track every hashtag, I mean, name we've lost? See us, broken in half, mouths open in silent wail. You want us to go away. Want to silence our screaming bloodlines, our vocal cords stretched furious. Will you run when we become fire? Learn to fear rope like we've learned about flame. It's a new season to murder us. Display on a wall the unexpected trophy for only recognizing loss when it destroys you. Here we separate, lose the parts of us born from complacency and silence, find us reborn. Boiling our fury until we turn steel, turn threat. We fearless women know truths. What novels are birthed in back rooms, we know what to expect. Tension is our territory. Expectation of rebellion should keep you awake. The loss of home, blood, family. Imagine the silence when we rise. Glorious, dressed in the magic of this fury you tried to beat out of us, fearful of the day we'd wake up and claim our new names. Pay attention to this new insurrection. Do not cower here, expecting ancestral amnesia, we the bereaved, mourning the loss of too many loved ones buried in silence, white supremacy battled in the dark. We link fury with resolve, welcome cold morning without fear. My mother said, accept silence, exercise fury, loosen fear. Our new hearts cannot. Here's a secret. No one ever expects reckoning to be a Black girl. So later on in the Coria poem, one of the characters, Loss, is navigating one of, like, the reason she's called Loss is because she experiences a miscarriage. And so this is her poem, Loss as a Canyon. When they call out crater, canyon, valley, they mean me. At 11, I visited the Grand Canyon. I didn't know I was reading my own palm. At 18, I miscarried what I imagined to be a son. Ever since, I've only wanted daughters. The benefit of being a dark hole in the ground is absorption, sudden swallowing of emotions, light and otherwise. I am not a well or a ground spring or laced with a river. I do not know how to swim. My walls are so steep, only experienced climbers can scale them. Jagged surfaces slice open their fingers, assumed handholds easily crumble. When a body passes through you, it takes everything it can hold in its barely existent grasp. My son took my tolerance for deceit and any courage I had to kill myself. I used to let visitors in unannounced, helicoptered them to my floor so they could make love to the view from far below. I thought sharing myself, selling postcards, organizing excavations of unseen territory would keep me on Earth. It turns out replication, even accidentally, with a man I will always lazily love, that's how to stay alive. Losing Dorian turned me from vaporous cloud to meteor to despot crater, sculpting a landscape behind my mother's house. She doesn't know her daughter is a graveyard, an altar to almost children. I worry the ocean will one day drown this canyon body, fill every crevice, submerge any memory of the little boy I never had. I wonder, what good is memory if its only service is to suffocate you? So at the end of the choreo poem, I know I'm kind of spoiling it, but not really. At the end of the choreo poem, New performs a spell with the other characters called Battle Stations that actually manages to bring Angela back together. So Angela returns to the stage. And as she's on stage, the characters leave with every stanza that she recites, leaving their scarves with her. And she performs her own kind of spell. And this is the final poem and the title poem, How to Exterminate the Black Woman. Everyone knows, starting with a furious god and ending with white men, silently, colored girls want to go extinct, but I don't, can't. I lose track of my own legacy within all the expectation of dying. Call it resilience, perpetual, an encoded dirge, old and new trees humming the chorus, fear not. I'm never supposed to be afraid, only strong. To kill myself is not a victory. Giving into fury is not success, no joy there. Yet, silently, the blood pools at the body's back. Another Black girl lost to the same oppressions and expectations of grandeur or pain. There's nothing new about a God waiting for me to lift a gun, open a new razor, strike a match. I refuse to apologize even if I should. Fear is as natural as melanin. Are my ancestors furious with me after each failed attempt to end my life? Is their silence their way of asking me to be a little stronger? Whatever loss I calculate must remain between my heart and my hips, expecting death by cop, by brother, by my own colored hands. I am patient as I try to conjure spells for the new generation. Body sewn with sinew from my flesh, fearful of asking for too much. I am tired of asking for too little, infuriated that my request for dignity in my death may be silently denied. I used to believe I could be a witch, stop losing my children and my name in the abyss of incomplete and lost history. I don't know what you expect from this Black girl shattered into 6 parts. What new lessons you hope to learn about the fear stamped in my bone marrow. You do not ask what fury tastes like, or how to navigate the pregnant silence after another of my sisters goes up in flames. You're happy silent, oblivious, uninformed, but the Black woman stays lost, blamed for her children's condition, her men's incarceration, expecting a blade or pill or bullet to end her suffering before she can present new evidence of her worth. My worth. You cover your fear of my dark, magical melanin with ignorance. I mask mine with rage. Mix all the colors and expect brown. Add silence, fury, loss, and fear. Get black. Here's the new spell. When they ask you how to exterminate the Black woman, tell them good fucking luck. Thank you.
Wow, Monica, thank you so much for bringing us full circle. And thanks again for everyone for showing up, for being here. It's amazing. I think at one point we had like 97 people in here, and I'm so privileged to be a part of it. a small part, and to see all of your wonderful faces in this way, people that I otherwise would not know, and to be so up close and to have that manufactured kind of intimacy, but an intimacy nonetheless. So yeah, we're gonna open it up to questions, and I think Jess, you're gonna kind of hop on and direct the Q&A for the moment.
And Chris is making sure that we can maybe extend this, but we might be on kind of a time limit. So we're gonna go quick, and we're gonna have short answers, but thoughtful answers from our authors. The way this is gonna work, I'm going to talk about a book for a second and ask if there's questions for that author. If you are the question that I choose, then you are going to email me your mailing address at jessica@pankmagazine.com. Please don't forget it, jessica@pankmagazine.com. And if you email me random other things, I won't answer them because that's
And y'all can unmute yourself now, by the way.
Yeah.
You can unmute you.
Okay.
So we're gonna start with
so we have a question actually I already see for Jody.
Perfect, which is who we're starting with. So let's do it. From Chugnip, I can't even say that. J.H. Nippy. Hearing your bio that you're a drummer. If so, do you find that your understanding of rhythm and drumming impacts the way you think about rhythm in composing poems? Does the way you hear rhythm ever dictate the language of your poetry, or do you start with content and revise with rhythm in mind? That's a great question. So let's hand it over to Jody.
Yes, that is a great question. Yes, I am a drummer. But yeah, actually my practice in like poetry, I think precedes my like drumming practice. So I guess from early writing days, I had a teacher who, talked about like music and rhythm a lot. So in my drafting process, I think that's where rhythm sort of comes out most naturally. And then in editing is when I have to try to avoid accidentally like editing the music out by trying to like, I don't know, be too clever or use the right words and then kind of lose like the natural way that it came out. But I think it's in the drafting process that for me, rhythm comes out most naturally.
And in the next reading we do, Jody will be drumming for us.
Yeah.
Shira wanted a musical component, so here we are.
My neighbors will be not happy about that.
That was a great question. Please email me your mailing address and I will shoot a copy of Jody's book out to you next week. I was going to go in order, but since we have questions rolling in, feel free to just type them out. We can also take multiple questions from people if we have the time. So let's go to Serena Pollock for a question for Monica. How many of your poems are based on nonfiction, and how do you navigate incorporating fictional elements in your poems or writing poems about topics that you haven't outright experienced?
Okay, so one of my things I try not to do is write poems about myself and then I fail, so I just like let it happen. So a lot of my poems are about me. This choreo poem was actually inspired by like my 5 best friends from college, because we were all like growing up and it was scary and sad and stressful. And I was kind of like thinking about them when I wrote this choreo poem about like the ways that they might handle very difficult experiences. And so when it comes to navigating, I want to make sure I get this whole thing right. When it comes to writing about nonfiction type elements, I tend to draw from my real life. But my favorite thing about poetry is that it can start about me and then I can lie. And then I guess nobody knows. So I appreciate that. I did a panel workshop thing with Jessica actually in Pittsburgh for the Conversations and Connections thing. Oh my gosh, that feels so long ago. Where she taught us how to write persona poems, which was really dope. And I appreciated that because that helped me better understand while I was revising this collection for its publication, how to enter the persona of the different characters a little bit better. To answer your second question, I do a lot of research about experiences I haven't actually had in order to make them realer. Bad way to phrase that, but I do a lot of research, or I just talk to someone who's experienced it. The poem about the miscarriage is a true story, which is sad, but getting it right required talking to a lot of doctors because I got a lot of conflicting answers about what had happened to me. And so when I finally actually, by talking to a bunch of different doctors, it helped to guide my research for how to write that piece. That poem went through like 6 different iterations, and it actually started as a National Poetry Month challenge, which I thought was interesting. So yeah.
Okay. Awesome. We think we'll be okay. It just might stop recording, so we'll continue right on. So for Elvira, did your mother talk about the travels and trials along the way in stories later in life? And did the presence or absence of those shape how you view the traveling of the same path?
Thank you so much for the question. Yeah, I think I had a kind of peculiar childhood because when she came over, we didn't have anybody here, and she was very reluctant to talk about her past, but at the same time it was everywhere. And so she would bring up just fragments of things that had happened to her, and that became extremely memorable to me as a kid growing up because I was just looking for a way to, I guess, piece together who we are. And especially as my mom started getting worse and worse, I was so desperate to kind of preserve those memories and to strengthen the sort of her presence in the world and the thing that I knew that she did for me. And so it became really, really important to kind of magnify those fragments of memory. And I think a lot of the poems begin with that. And I try to bring them back to life to give them substance. And they were definitely with me when I was traveling. I traveled for a few months following her path, and I also took photographs. Everywhere I went, I tried to, from like what little information that I had, I tried to find her addresses, where she had stayed. Eventually, I found the maternity clinic where I was born. And when I was finishing the book, because it took me a while, I would look at those photographs and I just felt nauseous. Like I felt physically ill. And there were definitely points in doing this where I felt like I didn't know if I can continue. But now looking back at it, I'm so happy that I did, because it feels so much like I have, I don't know, ground beneath my feet. It's so hard to say goodbye. And I think to honor, people we lost, and, how do you undo a wrong? I don't know how to do that. And how do you live with that? Like, there's nothing you can say or do to take back what had happened. And I think so much of good poetry and good writing is kind of just confronting that, our limitation in doing that, and yet trying to fight against it. And I think that's what I had in mind, and that definitely motivated me to fight through that sick feeling. And I can't, sometimes even now when I read it out loud to friends, I feel like crying. Like it feels still so visceral, which is also why I'm really so happy. I'm so grateful to PANK for giving me the chance to share this. So thank you for the question.
Thank you, Elvira. Melissa, why are you so obsessed with California as a New Yorker?
Hi, thanks for the question. I don't know. I mean, I think, I came out of college, I studied screenwriting, and I've always been really obsessed with movies and music and pop culture. And right as I was leaving college, I almost moved to California, and with someone who is now very successful. So it's almost like that weird sliding doors moment of this is a big decision that you make and really changes the outcome of your life. So because I didn't go, I have this one life, and what if I did go? There's almost this shadow life that kind of lives underneath the surface. And so I have an 11-year-old daughter, and she's obsessed with going to college in California. She's like, I know I'm going to college in California. So I feel like I will be there at some point. It's going to be part of my life no matter what. And I think there's something about the extremities, them being New York and California being the edges. They're so different, but like you kind of like once you get to one, it's like you kind of, they're all similar too, so it kind of goes back. It's like that middle point where the ending starts at the beginning again. So I also like the weather. So I don't know, like it's just always been a place where I've been reading a lot of Eve Babbitt's too lately, so there's just sort of this, I don't know, there's a different kind of melancholy there than there is on the East Coast. And it's almost like a hidden melancholy because everything seems so beautiful and so, I don't want to say easy, but like if you're upset or sad and you're walking down the street in New York, it's not a big deal, you know? There's something like hidden about all those things in California. I see some of my California friends here. Hi, Riff. So I definitely have been thinking a lot about it, especially for flash pieces. I think there's something like about a short piece that feels right with such a big place. It tackles sort of the enormity of it and to try to like crystallize it down into something. So that's it. I hope I answered the question.
Yes, and I know all of us on the West Coast are hoping for some nice California weather right now. Speaking of weather, the next question is for Shira. Could you talk more about the weather imagery in your book, and at what point in your writing does it enter?
Okay, so I could talk about this from different directions. For one thing, I write about weather a lot, I think, now that I think about it, that you've drawn my attention to it. In fact, I had a friend who used to particularly look for my weather report, so to speak. And so the relationship to the book is the cycles of weather, right? Like growth and aging and, the cycle like that. But in general, I am very affected by the weather. The weather is nature, and it's a presence, and it's always moving. And so as a writer, lots of times I'm particularly interested in being kinetic and following kinetic processes. And so when I jump into the weather, so to speak, I'm right there with movement. The weather has personalities, and just like Jalen focused on light and that light as a presence, it focusing on weather also leads to metaphysical things. And also I'm very interested in physics. And so even just like thinking about, what causes wind, what causes the sound in wind, and thinking about analogies between the physical processes and psychological states, and social dynamics, and how they're like fractals. They're microcosms of, there's just microcosms of lots of different patterns. So, I looked in my book to be able to answer your question, and actually weather happens in the very first piece. So it's there at the get-go. So thank you for your question.
Awesome. For Jalen, what made you want to start writing nonfiction essays about or related to your kids? How much more creative work have you done with this collection, since they're present, at your readings? And are they your main source for inspiration?
Well, actually, sorry, they're all in here right now. Well, I actually started writing these essays about, if you're quiet, just stay here. I started writing them about light before, and so I was mostly thinking about light. And then I had the kids, and it just seemed like part of the writing about light, what occasioned it was feeling like I was having a lot of anxiety and I didn't want to leave the house. And so it was kind of a practice of just attention and kind of a contemplative practice. And then when I had the kids, I felt like I still couldn't leave the house, and I had a very different kind of attention, but I was still, basically just like staring at the walls all day and looking at light. And so it just seemed like might as well write them together. And now, 4 years later, I still can't leave the house. And and it's kind of funny I'm not exactly staring at walls right now, though. I feel like it's a very much more active occupation of the space, but just the coincidence, I guess, of talking about that right at this moment. I haven't really written much after. I mean, I haven't really written much that's like inspired by them, but I have been thinking about. But I have actually been really interested about what it is to occupy a domestic space and what it is for women to occupy domestic spaces. And so some of what I'm writing now is very much not necessarily about children, but about like being in the house and being stuck in houses. And again, it's just kind of coincidental that I'm once again stuck in, like we're all stuck in a house, and we're all probably in a domestic space in a way that is very strange for us, but it's also kind of, I mean, historically it's strange for men to be stuck in houses because they're usually like occupying public spaces. So I don't know, I'm still thinking about this book, but in different ways. And I'm just, they're not my main source my necessarily, but it's like immersive. My whole life this is what my whole life is right now. So it always makes its way in. But thank you for the question. That's a great question, Caitlin.
And it's 10:01 and we didn't get booted. So we're gonna keep going on. I think Christine, does anybody have a question for Christine Hume? I know you guys do.
It's so good.
And you're also welcome to jump on mic. You don't have to type it out. I hear typing though.
I have a question.
There we go. Well, I see Adrienne, since you play music for us, Christine, and then Monica, you can definitely ask.
That's basically the question. That was my question. So good job, Taylor. That's one of my students. Good job.
Did you rate this to music?
Thanks, Monica. I'm sorry, what was it again? I missed it.
The music for us today. Did you rate this to music?
Oh, did I write it to music? I mean, probably part of it I wrote to music, but I often like to perform with some kind of soundtrack that I make or that I'll commission somebody to make for pieces. And usually they're a little more interactive, but I wasn't sure how this was going to go, so I did a mild version. And I do that partly because because I feel like reading experiences for me, it gives me something else to focus on. So it feels a little bit more, attention feels a little bit more dispersed. And also I like to think about the reading as something slightly different from the book or the thing on the page. So it offers that kind of more immersive experience. I think I started it partly because I historically just hated giving readings. And I was like, how can I make this more interesting for myself? Also because of, like, this is an essay, but I started as a poet, right? And I think poetry readings are particularly hard for people. I always say to my students, you don't have the same kind of anxiety when you listen to a song for the first time as you do when you hear a poem, right? you don't feel like I need to understand, I don't understand, slow it down. You know, there's not the same kind of feeling, even though it's also a temporal medium. So if people, you know, can think about poem as more of something that is like Jody was saying, like, you know, it's about rhythm, it's about all these other things that are happening that maybe the soundtrack can help.
That's a really interesting thought, that it's not as anxious. I like that. Cool. Okay. Well, on that note, we're going to